Hello, and welcome to this week's video lecture. This week, we will be exploring the idea of leadership during a crisis. Let's begin. In today's lecture, we will explore several key concepts central to understanding leadership in challenging contexts. We will begin by examining turbulence and crisis, considering how unpredictable environments and sudden disruptions shape organizational realities. From there, we will discuss crisis leadership, focusing on how leaders respond, make decisions, and maintain stability under pressure. The importance of communication during crises will also be highlighted, as effective information sharing and message framing are vital for maintaining trust and direction. We will then analyse different leadership styles in crisis, identifying how varying approaches influence outcomes and team resilience. Finally, we will consider adaptive leadership, exploring how flexibility, learning and responsiveness enable leaders to guide their organisations. When we talk about turbulence, we're referring to situations where events, demands and sources of support are constantly shifting in ways that are inconsistent, unexpected or difficult to predict. The term originally comes from physics, where it describes chaotic movement in fluids, for example, stormy weather or rapidly changing river currents. In the context of organisations or public leadership, we use the idea of turbulence to highlight how interconnected systems are, and how uncertainty can shape decision-making. So essentially, turbulence emphasises that change doesn't always happen in a neat, orderly way. Instead, it can be irregular, unpredictable, and shaped by multiple interacting forces. There are four key reasons why turbulence has become a constant feature of our contemporary world. First, global real-world events. Processes like globalization, rapid technological innovation, the end of the Cold War, debates around European integration, and the rise of terrorism have all created fast-moving and unpredictable international conditions. Second, the changing nature of politics. Politics today is increasingly volatile and polarised. Social media and the 24-hour news cycle intensify public scrutiny, reduce trust, and speed up political fallout, leaving governments and leaders constantly reacting. Third, the complex nature of public problems. Issues such as climate change, large-scale migration, and widening economic inequality are what we call wicked or even super-wicked problems. These problems are multi-layered, cross boundaries, and include deep value conflicts, which makes them extremely difficult to address. And finally, organisational and institutional complexity. Modern systems have longer supply chains and more interconnected stakeholders. This increases interdependence, meaning that small disruptions can have wide-ranging effects. Together, these factors explain why turbulence is not just temporary. It has become a permanent condition in public leadership and decision-making. When we talk about crisis leadership, we are referring to the ability of leaders to guide organisations or communities through periods of extreme disruption and uncertainty. A crisis is a situation where normal routines no longer work, information is incomplete, and decisions have to be made quickly under pressure. Crisis leadership involves several key responsibilities. Leaders must first recognise and frame the situation clearly, helping others understand what is happening and why it matters. They also need to communicate openly and consistently, even when not all answers are known, in order to maintain trust and reduce anxiety. Another important element is coordination. Crises often involve multiple actors and agencies, so leaders must bring people together, align objectives, and facilitate collaboration across boundaries. Finally, crisis leadership requires adaptability. Because crises evolve rapidly, leaders must be willing to revise plans. Crisis leadership can be understood in three key stages: pre-crisis, acute crisis, and post-crisis. First, the pre-crisis stage. This is the period before a crisis fully emerges. The focus here is on anticipation and preparedness. Leaders monitor risks, build resilience, develop contingency plans, and cultivate relationships that can be relied upon later. Effective pre-crisis leadership is proactive. It reduces vulnerability and increases an organization's ability to respond quickly when disruption occurs. Next is the acute crisis stage. This is when the crisis has fully materialized and decisions must be made under intense pressure. Information may be incomplete, time is limited, and the stakes are high. Leaders must communicate clearly, provide direction, coordinate response efforts, and maintain public trust. The aim here is to stabilize the situation, limit damage, and ensure safety. Finally, the post-crisis stage. This stage focuses on recovery, learning, and change. Leaders evaluate what happened, identify lessons, repair relationships, and rebuild systems. This is also the moment when organizations reflect on how to prevent similar crises in the future. Post-crisis leadership is crucial for strengthening resilience and restoring confidence. Together, these three stages show that crisis leadership is not only about reacting in the moment, it involves preparation beforehand and learning afterwards to build a stronger, more adaptive organization. There are several different types of crises that organizations and governments may face, each with distinct causes and consequences. Public health crises. These occur when diseases spread rapidly, threatening population health and overwhelming healthcare systems. Examples include the COVID-19 pandemic and Ebola outbreaks. In these situations, leaders must coordinate public health responses, manage uncertainty, and communicate clearly to maintain public trust. Natural disaster crises. These crises are triggered by environmental events, such as storms, earthquakes, or flooding. For example, Hurricane Katrina or the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami in Japan. Leadership during natural disasters often focuses on emergency response, resource mobilization, and humanitarian support. Technological or industrial crises. These arise from human error, system failure, or industrial accidents. The Chernobyl nuclear disaster and the BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill are key examples. These crises often raise questions about regulation, risk management, and organizational responsibility. Product or corporate crises. In these cases, products fail or organizations act misleadingly, damaging trust. Volkswagen's Dieselgate scandal and the Boeing 737 MAX crashes illustrate how corporate decisions can create global, reputational, and financial consequences. Political or leadership crises. These occur when political figures or institutions lose legitimacy. The Watergate scandal in the United States and the UK Partygate scandal both undermined public confidence in government leadership. Reputational or ethical crises. These are triggered by actions seen as unethical, immoral, or insensitive. For example, the Oxfam Haiti scandal or the Pepsi/Kendall Jenner advertising controversy. These crises can be particularly damaging because they erode trust at a values level. Supply chain crises. These happen when global production and distribution networks are disrupted. Recent examples include the global semiconductor chip shortage and the Suez Canal blockage by the Ever Given in 2021. Such crises highlight how interdependent and fragile supply systems have become. Together, these crisis types show that disruption can emerge from many directions: biological, environmental, technological, organizational, political, ethical, or logistic. Crisis leadership is about guiding an organization through periods of extreme uncertainty and threat. During a crisis, the usual routines and procedures are no longer enough, so leaders must act quickly and adaptively to stabilize the situation. Unlike everyday leadership, crisis leadership takes place under conditions of surprise, where information is incomplete, time is limited, and the stakes are extremely high. Leaders are required to make decisions without having all the facts, and to communicate in a way that maintains confidence and direction. Crisis leadership is also relational. This means that how leaders interact with others, both internally and externally, matters just as much as the decisions they make. Emotional intelligence and empathy are crucial here. Leaders need to understand how people are feeling, offer reassurance, and build trust in order to keep teams and communities cohesive throughout the crisis. So, crisis leadership is not just about managing. Boyne and colleagues identify several core functions that leaders must carry out when a crisis unfolds. 1. Sense-making. The first task is to understand what is happening. Crises are confusing and fast-moving, so leaders need to gather information, interpret events, and create a shared understanding of the situation. 2. Decision-making. Once there is some clarity, leaders must make timely and often difficult decisions. Even when information is incomplete, action cannot be delayed. Effective crisis leaders make choices that stabilize the situation and prevent further escalation. 3. Meaning-making. Leaders must also communicate the situation in a clear and reassuring way. This involves shaping the narrative, explaining what is being done, and helping people understand why certain decisions are necessary. 4. Coordination. Crises usually involve multiple agencies, organizations, and stakeholders. Leaders need to align efforts, share responsibilities, and ensure collaboration so that the response is coherent rather than fragmented. 5. Maintaining and restoring legitimacy. Finally, leaders must maintain public trust throughout the crisis. Later, during recovery, they need to demonstrate learning and accountability, showing that the organization has reflected and improved in order to prevent similar crises in the future. Together, these functions highlight that crisis leadership is not only operational, it is strategic, communicative, and relational. An essential part of crisis leadership is managing communication effectively. During a crisis, narratives can form and spread very quickly, and not all of them will be accurate. So one of the leader's key roles is to shape the public narrative, to prevent false stories from taking hold, and to provide a reliable source of truth. This means communicating early, honestly, and with transparency. When organizations try to hide information or delay updates, it creates space for misinformation, speculation, and rumors. Clear communication helps maintain trust and reduces confusion. It's also important to tailor messages to different stakeholder groups: employees, government agencies, media, local communities, or customers may all need different information. However, the messaging should remain consistent across the board so that no group receives conflicting or contradictory messages. Finally, crisis communication should not just be one way. Leaders must encourage two-way communication, allowing questions, feedback, and concerns to be voiced. Listening is just as important as speaking, as it allows leaders to understand how messages are being received and where clarification may be needed. Overall, effective crisis communication protects trust, maintains legitimacy, and stabilizes the situation during uncertainty. Decision-making in a crisis is very different from decision-making in normal conditions. During a crisis, leaders face intense time pressure, limited or incomplete information, and high levels of uncertainty. Despite this, decisions still need to be made quickly, and delaying action can often make the situation worse. A key challenge is that there is rarely a perfect or risk-free option. Crisis decisions often involve choosing between imperfect alternatives. This means leaders must be comfortable acting with ambiguity, using the best information available at the moment. Effective crisis decision-making involves several important practices. First, prioritization. Leaders must determine what is most urgent and what will have the greatest impact. Second, consultation and collaboration where possible. Even in fast-moving situations, drawing on expert advice and listening to trusted team members can improve the quality of decisions. Third, flexibility and adaptation. As new information emerges, leaders must be willing to adjust plans, revise decisions, and pivot strategies. Rigidity can be dangerous in a rapidly evolving situation. It is also essential to communicate decisions clearly. People need to understand what is being done and why, especially when decisions affect safety, resources, or routines. In short, decision-making under crisis is about acting decisively, learning continuously, and remaining adaptable, even when the path forward is uncertain. Transformational leadership is particularly effective in times of crisis because it inspires and motivates followers to transcend immediate challenges and embrace a shared vision for recovery. Leaders who exhibit transformational qualities, such as idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, and individualized consideration, can foster resilience, adaptability, and commitment among their teams. By articulating a clear purpose, modeling calm and ethical behavior, and encouraging innovative problem-solving, transformational leaders help organizations navigate uncertainty while maintaining morale and cohesion. In crises, their ability to engage both the hearts and minds of employees ensures that responses are not only strategic but also aligned with long-term organizational values. Servant leadership during a crisis emphasizes putting the needs of employees and stakeholders first, fostering trust, empathy, and collaboration when uncertainty is high. Servant leaders prioritize supporting and empowering their teams, actively listening to concerns, and providing the resources and guidance needed to navigate challenges. By focusing on the growth and well-being of individuals, they build resilience and a strong sense of collective responsibility, which enhances organizational stability and adaptability. In times of crisis, servant leadership encourages a culture of mutual care and ethical decision-making, ensuring that both immediate responses and long-term outcomes align with organizational values and human-centered priorities. Effective leadership in complex and uncertain environments relies on 4 interconnected qualities. Emotional intelligence allows leaders to perceive, understand, and manage both their own emotions and those of others, fostering empathy and strong interpersonal relationships. Organisational justice ensures fairness in decision-making and resource allocation, building trust, commitment, and a sense of inclusion among employees. Character underpins ethical and consistent behaviour, providing a moral compass that guides actions and inspires confidence. Finally, development emphasises continuous learning and the growth of both leaders and their teams, enabling individuals and organisations to adapt, innovate, and thrive over time. Together, these qualities create a foundation for resilient, principled, and people-centred. Get off the dance floor. Adaptive leaders know when to step back from the chaos of daily operations to gain perspective, understand complex dynamics, and make strategic decisions. This approach relies on 12 key traits: resilience, flexibility, empathy, courage, systems thinking, self-awareness, integrity, decisiveness, curiosity, collaboration, vision, and accountability. By embodying these traits, leaders can diagnose challenges, engage and mobilize stakeholders, maintain focus on what truly matters, and empower teams to implement adaptive solutions. Stepping off the dance floor allows leaders to see the bigger picture, foster learning, and guide their organizations through uncertainty with clarity and confidence. Critical analysis is essential for leaders navigating a crisis, as it allows them to make informed, strategic decisions under pressure. Effective crisis analysis involves gathering accurate and relevant information, assessing risks and potential impacts, and challenging assumptions rather than relying on intuition alone. Leaders must also identify patterns, interdependencies, and underlying causes of the crisis, while considering both short-term consequences and long-term implications. Importantly, critical analysis requires balancing speed with reflection, engaging diverse perspectives, and questioning organisational norms to uncover blind spots. By systematically evaluating situations and potential responses, leaders can make decisions that are both agile and ethically sound, guiding their organisations through uncertainty with clarity and confidence. Please take some time to do this week's reflection. If you have any questions or thoughts, please contact your tutor or discuss in the drop-in session. Thank you for listening, and see you next